morning, everyone.
Morning.
So, welcome to our last last day of lecture. No, next week you'll have your midterm and final exam. No? So, the way we conducted it, no preliminary will be the same. No? Okay, so I hope you're there and you're ready to listen to the last two modules we're going to finish today. No? So sorry to start the class late, but don't worry, we'll finish yung last two modules natin. Okay? So let me share my presentation with you. Okay, so do you see my PowerPoint?
Yes po.
Okay, see. So module number 11 is about deductions no, from gross income. Okay? So one thing you should take note, yung deductions na tinutukoy natin is from the gross income, okay? And not really from sales or revenue, okay? But from gross income, okay? So we will be discussing the following. Number one is yung comparison ng return of capital versus allowable deductions, okay? Both will be discussed, pero yung pinaka-topic talaga natin is itong allowable deductions, okay? So that will be number two. And finally, we will discuss yung mga non-deductible items, okay? In your accounting classes, you normally call this expenses, okay? These are the items that you deduct from, your income, no? So usually, what you do in accounting is what you do also in tax. Usually, what you do in accounting is what you also do in tax. Okay? Kasi usually naman yung tax will follow the accounting that you do. Okay? The accounting rules. Okay? I'll just tell you later yung specific rules that you need to observe for taxation. Okay? So, pero let's clarify, no? Ano ba tong return of capital versus yung allowable deductions? Okay? So, return of capital, this is deducted from the proceeds ng sales, okay? To arrive no, at gross income. So, items ito of exclusions and not really deductions. Technically, there's a difference between exclusion and deduction. But both of them naman will mean that that item is not subject to tax or that is reducing the tax base. Okay? So, yan. So, ang return of capital, again, deducted siya from sales. Okay? Tapos, hindi siya deduction per se, but rather exclusion. Okay? So, hindi siya subject to tax kasi nga dinideduct siya from sales and it's excluded. No? So, ang tinutukoy therefore na return of capital ay yung cost of sales tapos cost of service, meaning yung mga direct cost. Okay? So, yung topic natin is ito talagang allowable deductions. No? So, this is deducted from gross income, no? To arrive at the taxable income. So, items of deductions rather than exclusions. So, remove from income subject to tax. Yun yung difference niya. No? Okay? So, we refer to business expenses, bad debts, losses. Okay? So, yung topic natin, which is allowable deductions, ano ang pinipertain natin? Is it before you compute your gross profit or after you compute your gross profit? Before or after gross profit? So, can you type in your answer in the chat box? So we are referring to after. So very good, no? Very good. Kasi yung before, yung sales minus direct cost, cost of sales, cost of service, yun yung sa gross, sa return of capital. No? So what we're discussing is yung after. Okay? So therefore, class, ganito yung iisipin nyo. No? You have to remember this formula. When you compute for taxable income, this is the formula normally. You start from sales. Yan, okay? Then you have here the direct cost, cost of sales, cost of service. Yan, no? So, dadaan ka muna sa what do you call the next item? Sales minus cost of sales. Yan, direct cost. So, dadaan ka muna sa tinatawag natin na gross income. Okay? So, yan, gross income. No? So, what next yung ipipresent mo na item after the gross income? The next thing that you present is our topic right now. No? So, ito yung tinatawag natin na allowable deductions. Okay, so take note that I use the term allowable deductions rather than expenses, not rather than operating expenses. Okay, so merong special meaning kasi yan, allowable deductions. No, so don't use expenses for tax purposes. Okay, so here you will arrive at taxable income. Okay, so this is our topic, yung allowable deductions. So if one thing I want you to get out of this lecture this morning is never use the term operating expenses for tax purposes. You should use the term allowable deductions. Okay? And you'll see the significance of the term later. Okay? So ito yung tinutukoy natin. So remember this formula, memorize. Okay? Memorize this formula. Okay? It's very similar to the income statement that you prepare in your accounting classes. No? But this is the more technically correct terms, especially this one, okay, yung allowable deductions. So, for taxation purposes. So when somebody asks you, how do you compute the taxable income? No? How do you compute the taxable income? Okay? So, this is the formula, no? Kasi usually, unless yung taxation ay nandito sa gross level, kadalasan ang tax base talaga is itong taxable income. So you should be familiar with this pro forma computation, okay? But I think here it's very familiar. It looks really familiar naman sa inyo, no? Okay, yan. So allowable deductions, nature of an exemption from taxation. So therefore, kung ganyan siya, it is strictly construed against the claimant. So meaning the taxpayer. No? So must be substantiated. Yan. Okay. So in reality, what do you think is the right attitude ng mga taxpayer? What do you think is the right attitude ng mga taxpayer? Attitude towards claiming expenses as allowable deduction. Should they feel entitled or just privileged? If you're a taxpayer, nagnegosyo ka, for example, may mga business expenses talaga. So what's your attitude towards those expenses? Are you really entitled to claim them as deduction that should reduce your taxable income and tax therefore? Or you're just privileged ng batas na i-claim sila? So, please type in your answer. Anong tamang word na gamitin natin? Are taxpayers entitled or privileged? Okay. Now, this is a little bit tricky, no? Kasi the word entitled is, it's being thrown many times, no? Pero for me, no, personally for me, the right word to use is privilege. Okay? Reason why this one, the word substantiated. Okay? Pagka in-examine ka ng BIR, sa ITR mo, let's say, nag-claim ka nito. So ito, may mga claim ka na allowable deductions, di ba? Naka-declare ito sa ITR mo. Diniduct mo sila sa gross income mo. Pag in-examine ka ng BIR, kailangan mong patunayan sa kanila na talagang entitled ka dyan. So, kailangan mo pang patunayan. So, it's not, that's why, for me, it's not really entitlement, but rather privilege. No? So, hindi porket meron kang ginastos sa negosyo mo that you can immediately claim that. Wag ganon yung thinking. No? Otherwise, if that's your thinking, you're gonna expose your business, your employer, no, to tax penalties. Hindi porket may expenses ka, pwede mo nang i-claim yun as deduction. So for me, the right word is privilege, no, rather than entitled. Sa kapag sinabi ng batas na bawal mong i-deduct yan, bawal talaga. Kahit na gumastos ka pa ng katakot-takot. Okay? So when BIR examines your books, no, for tax assessment, you are the one burdened by the law to prove that you're privileged to claim deductions. No, you're really you call this. You're really correct in claiming them. Okay, so that's just your privilege. And the BIR, if they see that you did not comply with the requirements, they can remove that privilege, and therefore will assess you for further taxes. Am I clear, everyone? Can you type in sa chat box if yes? Okay. So wag makipagtalo sa BIR ha na wala kang ipapakitang support. So sabihin mo lang, ay normal naman na ginagastos yan, talagang may ganyan. That is not the right attitude, okay? So that will not prosper, kumbaga. That will not be accepted by the authorities. Okay? So don't just say na talagang ginagastos yan sa negosyo to. So kailangan may support ka. Okay? So kinds of deductions. So deductions may be itemized. Okay? This is under section 34A to J of the National Internal Revenue Code. So this is applicable to business profession income. Kasi remember, compensation income is walang deductions yun. Ang compensation income, tinatax mo yun at gross. No? What you remove lang from there, yung mga mandatory contributions to SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, no? But you don't deduct expenses, no? Okay? For example, employee ka, hindi mo pwedeng i-deduct sa salary mo yung travel cost mo, no, from your home to your work, your meals. So you cannot deduct them. Pag compensation income, walang deductions yun. So ang binabawasan, business and profession income. Okay? So the other kind of deduction is an optional standard deduction. Okay? So under 34L naman to ng NIRC. So in lieu of itemized deduction. So itong dalawa, pinagpipilian yan. Ang default is itong itemized deduction. Okay? If you choose rather OSD, you can, no, but you cannot anymore claim itemized deduction. Okay? So you just claim either itemized deduction or OSD, but you cannot claim both, no? Pero kailangan bago mo piliin yung OSD, you really have to signify that. Otherwise, if you don't signify your choice na gumamit ng OSD, then you are by default going to claim itemized deduction. So then there are special deductions under sections 37, 38 ng NIRC. And maybe some special laws like Board of Investment, PEZA, etc. Okay? Class, this is quite a lengthy chapter. No? What I'm gonna do for finish is just I'm gonna discuss with you the important points. Okay, the important points, because generally, what you claim the expenses in your accounting classes, no, may be claimed naman yan sa taxation, as long as the rules are followed. No? And I'm gonna give you those rules. Okay. Pero remember, your attitude dapat is you're not entitled. You're just privileged, okay, to claim those expenses as allowable deduction. So what do you think? Is there a possibility na may difference ang accounting expenses mo versus your allowable deduction from taxation? Pwede bang magkaiba ang present mo na expenses sa accounting income statement versus yung claim mo na allowable deduction sa ITR? So what do you think? Yes or no? Pwede bang may yes, may difference? Or no na they would just be equal? So can you type in your answer sa chat box natin? Okay, very good, very good. So the answer is yes. Okay, because it's usual, no, na meron kang accounting expenses pero hindi pala siya allowable deduction kasi hindi siya allowed ng tax rules natin. Okay, and all the rules na nasa tax code natin is nandito sa presentation na to na binigay ko sa inyo, no? So you have to study well if you want to learn more about the specific allowable deductions. Okay? So, okay, so the timing of deduction. So deduct all authorized allowances for the taxable year. Otherwise, cannot be deducted in the succeeding year. So ano siya? Kung anong year siya na-incur, 2022, dun mo lang siya pwede i-claim. So pag lumagpas yan ng taon, hindi na pwede. Ganun ang rules sa taxation. So that's under accrual method. Yan. So as long as nangyari na yung event, may liability na, and the amount can be determined with reasonable accuracy, then pwede mo na i-claim. So ang expenses ba kailangan bayad bago pwedeng i-claim sa taxation? The answer is no. Because accrual method is allowable. Okay? So taxpayers allowed to claim deductions. So individuals, from their income from business profession, they can claim itemized or optional standard deduction. Ganon din si corporation, pwedeng itemized or allowable or optional standard deduction. So individuals earning purely compensation income, so beginning 2018, are no longer allowed to claim deductions. Okay? So dati meron pang tinatawag na personal exemptions, like pag merong children, okay? So, but now it's no longer allowed. Okay, so yan. I'll give you the details nitong itemized deductions. So number one, expenses, interest, taxes, losses, bad debts, depreciation, depletion. Okay, so charitable and other contributions, research and development, so pension trust contributions. Okay, so these are usual business expenses. These are usual business expenses. Okay, pero as I said, pag meron kang mga gantong ginastos, are you automatically allowed to claim them? The answer is no again, because you're not totally entitled to them. You're just privileged to claim them. And if it's your privilege, there are requirements that you should follow. So number one, sa business expenses, ang requisites niyan, it should be ordinary and it should be necessary. Okay? You paid it, you have incurred it. So related to your business, substantially, it's proved by evidence or records. Okay? Not contrary to law, public policy or morals. Income tax required to be withheld must be paid. The amount must be reasonable. Okay? So we have illustrative case number 1 dito. No? So Masarap Food Corporation incurred substantial advertising expense in order to protect its brand franchise for one of its line products. Sa kanyang ITR, yan, so the corporation included advertising expense as deduction from gross income, claiming it as an ordinary business expense. So is it correct? What's your answer to this one? Gumastos daw siya ng malaki talaga to kasi substantial, no? Advertising expense. Okay? Ang ginawa niya, claim niya as ordinary business expense. So, tama ba na claim niya yun? So, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, not because you incurred an expense that you are automatically entitled to that. It's just your privilege and therefore you must follow the requisites. Okay? Anong answer niyo? Tama ba na claim niya yon? Yes or no? Okay? Let's find out. Let's find out. Assuming may records naman related to business, bayad, no? Or nagastos na. It's not contrary to law. Yung income tax na kailangan i-withhold, na-withhold naman. Okay? Yung amount dapat ay reasonable, di ba? Tapos it's ordinary and necessary. So, ang suggested na answer dito, okay, it's actually a real court case, itong situation na to. Real court case ito. Ang suggested na answer, you all are correct. Ang sagot, no. Okay? The protection of the taxpayer's brand franchise is analogous to maintenance of goodwill or title to one's property, which is in nature capital expenditure. Okay? So, an advertising expense as of such nature does not qualify as ordinary business expense, no? And it's to be enjoyed beyond 1 year. So kung mapapansin nyo, among the 7 requisites, dito siya pumalpak sa number 1. Okay, and maybe dito sa number 7 because the amount is very substantial. Okay? So, ang dapat gawin doon ng taxpayer, i-capitalize niya muna. So meaning asset muna siya. Tapos kung ilang years expected na magagamit yun, yung investment na yun, then therefore, dun siya dapat i-amortize. Okay? Kung napansin nyo, sa accounting nyo, bawal yun. Kasi pag sa accounting, may advertising expense ka, it's expensed outright. Bawal yun i-capitalize. Pero for tax purposes, because it doesn't meet the ordinary sense or requisite, and being the amount not reasonable, then therefore, hindi siya qualified na i-claim mo lahat as allowable deduction. Okay? Are we clear about this one? Okay? So, yan siya. So, kinds of business expenses, salaries, wages, yan. Yung usual naman itong mga to. Basta ito yung isipin nyo, class. Lahat naman ng ginagastos, basta connected yan sa business. Okay? Lahat yan pwede mong i-claim na expenses. As long as allowable deductions. As long as you follow the requisites. Okay? The requisites. So katulad nito, repairs, maintenance, Kung minor yan or major, kung minor, it's deductible, ordinary. Otherwise, kung major, kinakapitalize mo na siya. Like how you do it in accounting. Okay? So, yan. Note lang, pagdating sa entertainment, amusement, recreation, expense, okay? Meron siyang limit. Pag seller ka ng goods or properties, 0.5% ng net sales ang maximum na pwede mong i-claim na entertainment, amusement, recreation expenses. But if you're seller of services, okay, including exercise of profession, use or lease of property, the limit is 1% of your revenue. Okay? So, merong illustrative case dito. I'll just give you the answer to this one so that you will be able to apply the rule dito. Katulad nito, ang nagastos niya 3,000. Pero per limit, 2,000 lang eh. So, ang pwede niya lang maklaim is 2,000 pesos. Okay? Entertainment, amusement, recreation expense or ear expense. Okay? So, nilimit siya ng tax rule natin. Because, it could be subject to abuse by taxpayer. So, taxpayer can just lump anything there and they can claim already, no? So, but our tax code see that risk. Okay? So, for ear expenses, there's a limit. And it depends on whether you're a seller of service or you're a seller of goods or, goods or properties. Okay, so we can remove na this one. So interest, okay, for interest naman, these are the requisites. So merong utang, syempre, gastos related sa trade business profession, not between related parties, not incurred to finance petroleum operations. Okay? If related to property acquisition, not capitalized. Because that's your option. Kasi pag kinapitalize mo na, then makiklaim mo na yon as part of the depreciation expense. Okay? So kung part na siya ng depreciation expense kasi kinapitalize mo, you cannot double claim that as another expense. Okay? Ang gusto kong i-discuss sa inyo sa interest is yung tinatawag na arbitrage. Arbitrage is a limitation. Okay? Interest income, 20% final tax. No? Yung interest expense, 25% ang reduction niya. No? Ang deductible lang daw is 20% nung interest income na subject to final tax. Okay? So kung meron kang interest income na subject to final tax, okay? 20% nun, ibabawas mo sa interest expense. Yung net, yun lang yung pwede mo maklaim. So that's arbitrage. Okay? Let's say, meron kang interest expense na 10,000 pesos. Yeah, interest expense, 10,000 pesos. Meron kang deposit sa bank. Tapos meron kang interest income doon. Okay? So, let's say may interest income na 1,000 pesos. Okay? 20% of this, okay, 20% of this is 200, no? Should be deducted dito. So therefore, yung interest expense na allowable deduction mo, it's not really 10,000 pesos, but rather 9,800 800. Okay? The deductible interest expense is reduced by 20% of interest income subjected to final tax. Interest income on deposit sa bank ay na final tax na yan. 20% of that should reduce the interest expense. Okay, so that's what you call interest arbitrage. Okay. May mga non-deductible din na interest expense like yung between related parties. Okay. So just have to learn them and memorize. Okay. You can read na lang these parts. Okay. Ito yung meaning ng related parties, family members, yan, individual and corporation na mayroong 50%, two or more corporations na mayroong 50%. Okay? Ownership. Ito pa yung iba. Okay? So we go to taxes. Okay? Non-taxable tax refunds and non-deductible taxes. Income tax, for instance, except for French benefit. French benefit is deductible. Okay? Income tax of foreign country, if claimed as tax credit. Estate donors tax, special assessments, VAT, fines, penalties, yan, final taxes, capital gains, stock transaction tax. So if a company incurred this nine taxes, no? You're not supposed to claim them as allowable deductions. They're non-deductible. Okay, they're not taxable as well when you refund them. Okay. Ito yung tungkol naman sa delinquency. Okay. We'll discuss this next semester pagka we discuss na yung mga penalties. No? You'll relate more to this by that time. Okay, so yun, class, no? And skip na this part. No? These are the itemized deductions. So what I plan to do is to discuss with you na lang the next part. Para hindi naman siya masyadong heavy na. No? Otherwise, bibilisan lang natin. Okay, so yun yung examples ng, yun yung content ng itemized deductions, okay? So again, whether you are an individual or a corporation, you're entitled also to claim optional standard deduction, okay? So if you choose that in lieu of itemized deduction. So let's see the details, okay? So optional standard deduction. So can be claimed in lieu of itemized deduction. But again, ito yung default, no? Itemized deduction. So taxpayer. So individual other than non-resident alien. OSD is not exceeding 40%. Ganun din naman sa corporation. Yun nga lang pag individual, ang basis ay yung gross sales. Okay? So no deduction of cost of sales or services. Then pag corporation, gross income yung basis. Okay? So sa GPP and its partner may avail of OSD only once. Okay? Election of OSD should be signified in ITR, and therefore it's irrevocable for that taxable year. Question class, if you were the taxpayer, which one would you claim as allowable deduction? Itemized or optional? What do you think? Which one would be more advantageous? Anyone? Okay, John Lee, optional. How about others? Anong magandang i-claim na allowable deduction? Should you go for itemized or just choose the optional standard deduction? Anyone? Nandyan pa ba kayo? Hello? Can you type in your answer? Itemized, itemized. Okay. Well, the answer is it depends. Okay? May pros and cons yan, syempre. So, of course, pwede mong i-check kung alin yung mas maliit yung tax mo. Kasi kung maliit yung itemized, you can choose na lang optional para malaki ang madidak mo, di ba? Pero assuming kasi parehas lang naman ng amount, ang pros and cons niya, it depends eh. Pag itemized, di ba kailangan i-follow mo yung requisites? Okay? Pag nag-claim ka ng business expense, may resibo ka dapat. Okay? Should be ordinary, no? So, tapos pagdating pa ng BIR, pwede pang ma-question yan kung itemized yan. Okay? If you are confident that that you can show to the BIR na kaya namang depensahan when they assess you, no? When they question your allowable deduction, and it would really benefit the company. So you can go for itemized deduction. Okay? Pero kung hindi ka compliant, kunwari hindi ka nag-issue ng resibo, yan. Yung supplier mo hindi nag-issue ng resibo, mga ganun ba, no? So in that case, I advise that you rather choose optional standard deduction. Kasi ang kagandahan sa optional standard deduction, okay, you can claim that and that's your entitlement. I think that's the right word naman for optional standard deduction. And BIR examiners cannot question why you are entitled to claim optional standard deduction because you really are entitled to it. Okay? So, walang makaka-question yan, no? So, at hindi siya kailangan ng resibo. Hindi siya kailangan supported, hindi siya kailangan substantiated. Are we clear? Okay? So, yan. Okay, so we have an example here. Ernesto, a Filipino citizen and a practicing lawyer, filed his ITR for 2007, claiming optional standard deductions. Realizing that he has enough documents to substantiate his profession-connected expenses, he now plans to file an amended ITR for 2007 in order to claim itemized deductions. Since no audit has been commenced by the BIR on the return he previously filed, will Ernesto be allowed to to amend his return? Why or why not? What's our rule when you claim OSD, when you signified it? The answer is it's irrevocable. So will he be allowed to claim to amend his return? The answer is no. Okay. Now, special deductions. So for private educational institution, insurance, marami to. Pero it depends na kung mayroong batas na nag-allow for that. Pag mga eskwelahan, yung capital expenditures nila sa facility nila, okay? So kunwari nagpatayo ng building, yung isang private educational institution. Okay? So, pwede niyang i-claim outright or pwede niyang i-capitalize and depreciate. Okay? Special deduction. Insurance, but we will not dwell on this anymore. Medyo special industry ang insurance. Okay? Okay, so finally we discussed the non-deductible items. Your personal living family expenses are not deductible. Okay? Capital expenditures, including capitalized interest. Pero, itong number 2, makiklaim mo to through depreciation. Okay? So premiums paid on life insurance or of employee or investor where the taxpayer is the beneficiary. Okay? Let's say, for example, your employer insured you, no? Pero ang beneficiary naman is yung employer mo rin mismo. So that's not really an expense, but an investment on their part. Therefore, it's non-deductible. Losses, okay, sa sales, exchanges sa property with related parties, related taxpayers. Interest, expense, bad debts between related taxpayers. Okay? Certain non-deductible taxes, which we have already discussed kanina, yung 9 taxes. Okay? So certain non-deductible losses, losses on wash sales, except for dealer insecurities. Okay? So illustration, Noel Santos is a very bright computer science graduate. He was hired by HP. To entice him to accept the offer of employment, he was offered the arrangement that part of his compensation would be an insurance policy with a face value of 20 million. The parents of Noel are made the beneficiaries. No? So can the company deduct yung premium dito? The answer is yes. So hindi siya deductible kung ang beneficiary, okay, ay yung HP mismo. But in this case, it's other than the employer. Therefore, it's deductible. So that's all, class, for module number 11. We might not have covered everything, okay? But yung pinaka-importanting points were covered, and you can just read the parts that I have skipped. Okay, would it be okay? And if you have questions regarding those parts na hindi natin na-cover, you can ask me anytime. Okay? So, read nyo na lang yun, no? But you can apply while you read yung mga yun, yung diniscuss natin. Okay? So, kamusta kayo? Okay lang ba kayo dyan? Sige. Good. good. No? Okay, so we're gonna cover the last module, and this is quite short. And we have been touching on this. No? It's about withholding tax. I'll just give you the entire idea, no? Or yes, idea. So withholding tax. Okay. So the concept, the consequences for failure to withhold, the kinds of withholding tax on wages, expanded withholding tax, final withholding tax at source, withholding VAT, and the deadline of withholding taxes. So the concept of withholding, it's a method of collecting income tax. But technically, it's not just income tax, no? In advance. So from the taxable income of income recipient. So yung nagbayad acts as withholding agent for the government. Okay? So yung nagbayad, no? May binenta sa kanya 100 pesos. So si income recipient may sale. Pero siya na magbabayad, okay? Instead na ibayad niya yung 100 diretso sa or lahat sa income recipient. Okay? May portion na tax na i-remit niya diretso sa BIR, sa government. So ito yung withholding tax. Okay? So it's advance payment kasi pagbayad niya pa lang, nagbayad na kagad sa gobyerno. Hindi na inantay pa na mag-remit si income recipient. Okay? So that's so question, sinong withholding agent sa withholding tax system natin sa Pilipinas? The payor or the recipient of income? It's the payor. So siya ang merong obligation. No? Kaya in reality, complying with withholding tax obligation is quite tedious. Kasi how many disbursement transactions are processed in a day? For example, ni Jollibee. No? Marami, di ba? Marami siyang binabayarang supplier, everything. No? At lahat yun, dapat ay may withholding tax. At ang rates nun, iba-iba. Okay? And it's quite tedious talaga. Kaya dapat part na siya ng sistema talaga ng Jollibee, for example. Okay? So, basta may system naman at may control in place. Kahit tedious yan, magagawa naman. Okay? So, timing, when income payment is paid or payable, or when the income payment is accrued or recorded. Paid, payable, accrued, recorded, okay? Whichever is applicable, okay? Whichever comes first. So payable, ito yung date that the obligation becomes due, demandable, or legally enforceable. So withholding agents, so persons, corporation, mga ganyan. No? Lahat naman pwede. So the importance of that is it encourages voluntary compliance, reduces costs of collection effort, prevents delinquencies, okay? It prevents dry spell in the fiscal condition of the government, okay? Although the system is quite tedious, we really have to comply with it. It's for the government, no? Okay? Consequences pag hindi nag-withhold. You're liable for surcharge penalties, liable for the amount na hindi mo withhold. So any income payment is otherwise deductible will not be allowed. So one of the requirements, diba, is dapat na withhold siya. Okay? There are two kinds of withholding taxes, creditable and final. Creditable is approximation ng tax due. Payee is still required to file. So liability rests primarily with the payee. Okay? Pero pag final na yan, yung in-illustrate ko pala kanina dito, sige, tuloy ko muna. Pag final, full payment na yan. Okay? Ng income tax. Hindi lang siya approximation. Kaya pag final na ang na-withhold sa'yo, as payee, you're not anymore required to file sa ITR yung income na yan. And the liability rests with the withholding agent. Yung in-illustrate ko dito, plus, na itong arrow na to, kailan ginagawa to? What type of withholding tax is this applicable to? Creditable or final? Can you type in your answer? When is the payment to be made pa ng income recipient to government? Okay. This is the payee, di ba? The payee. Kailan yung payee magpa-file pa ng ITR tapos magre-remit pa sa BIR kung may kulang pa? Final or creditable? Okay, so good, no? Etong arrow dito, this is applicable na magbabayad pa rin si payee kahit na withholdan na siya. Kung yung withholding dito previously was only creditable. Okay? Kasi kung final na to, itong withholding dito, itong part na to is no longer applicable. Okay? So I hope that's clear, no? So pag creditable, sino ang liable talaga? Pag creditable, ang liable talaga ay si payee. Okay? Pero pag final na yan, payee is no longer obligated. No? The liability rests with the withholding agent, the payor. No? Withholding tax on wages. So, ito yung sa mga employees. Okay? The employer is the withholding agent. So, sa employer, nag-submit siya ng ganyang forms, i-remit niya, may mga adjustment. Okay? No need to know the specifics. Malalaman niyo yan sa practice na kasi mga very specific. Okay? Ano nga ang masaklap sa buhay ng employee? Pag employee ka, wala kang takas sa tax. Because before you even receive your salary, okay, when you check your pay slip, nakadeduct na doon yung mga withholding taxes. Are we clear? At anong tawag doon? Withholding tax on wages. Withholding tax. Expanded, no? Ito yung withholding of creditable tax at source. So, mga payments yan. No? Final withholding tax at source. Yung final na yung withholding tax. Example here is, anyway, we'll have examples later. I'll skip na this part. You can read na lang itong part. Ito hindi siya income tax but VAT. You learn VAT next semester. So, mga bayad to sa non-residents. Okay? So, payment sa government. Dati siyang final withholding VAT, pero it's now accreditable. The system was changed. Okay? So, sa lahat ng mga diniscuss natin, class, tatandaan nyo, ito lang yung mga withholdings. Final withholding tax. French benefit is also a withholding tax. Withholding tax on wages. Expanded withholding tax. Ito yung sa mga payments. Okay? And finally, withholding VAT. So there are 5 of them, no, withholding tax. So this is the summary of their deadline. Okay? So yun lang, short lang yan. Okay? So I guess we finished earlier, although I did not elaborate any more dun sa ibang parts ng deductions, but all of those are nasa presentations. Okay? So do you have any questions? Or clarifications? Take this chance. This is our last meeting for this semester. Want to clarify something? Okay. What's the tax rate for special corporations? Sinong corporation yung exempt? Okay. So I want you to read all of them again. The modules. O gusto nyo ba Sunday kayo mag-exam? Next week? Well, anyway, wag na. Saturday na. Baka magulo pa yung schedule niyo. So anything else? So if anything pops up, just send a message dun sa group na chat na. Sige, please open your cameras now. Let's have our final this semester picture. Remy, you'll take the picture again.
Apo, sir. Open cam na po.
Kayong mahiya, because next semester we'll see each other face to face. Okay?
Okay po, smile po. Wait lang po, isa pa po. Smile po. Okay na po, thank you po.
Thank you. Good luck to your exams.